The fluorescent lights of the 32nd floor hummed their familiar tune as I stared at the quarterly projections spread across my desk. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Minneapolis office tower, the city was disappearing behind a wall of rain so thick it looked like static on an old television. The weather alert on my phone had been escalating all afternoon, each update more urgent than the last. Category 3 storm. Unprecedented rainfall. Stay indoors. Seek shelter immediately. My name is Michael Harrison. I am 38 years old, and I work as a senior financial analyst for one of those investment firms whose glass towers dominate every major city skyline. You know the type: marble lobbies, executive lounges, and enough money flowing through our computers every day to buy a small country. It is the kind of career my parents always dreamed I would have, the kind that looks perfect on their annual Christmas letter to extended family. Successful son, corner office, six-figure salary, the whole package. What those letters never mention is that success can feel awfully hollow when you are eating takeout alone at your desk for the 5th night in a row, watching the city lights blur through rain-streaked windows. The office had emptied hours ago. Even the most dedicated workaholics had fled when the weather service upgraded the storm warning to life-threatening. But I stayed, not because the Fletcher Industries merger documents were particularly urgent, but because an empty office felt more honest than an empty apartment. At least here, the loneliness had a purpose, a spreadsheet to justify it. My phone vibrated against the mahogany desk, the sound sharp in the silence. Unknown number. Normally, I would let it go to voicemail, probably another recruiter or someone trying to sell me vacation property I did not need. But something, maybe the storm, maybe the isolation, made me answer. I remember the last time I had ignored an unknown number during a storm. It was 3 years ago, another late night at the office, another spreadsheet that seemed more important than anything else in the world. That call had been from a hospital in Wisconsin, trying to tell me that my college roommate had been in an accident. By the time I got the voicemail and called back, it was too late to say goodbye. Since then, storms made me answer phones. Storms made me think about all the connections we let slip away in favor of Excel formulas and quarterly projections. Michael! The voice was barely audible over what sounded like wind trying to tear the world apart. Yes? Who is this? It is Rachel. Your sister. Those 3 words hit me like ice water. Rachel. My younger sister who I had not heard from in 4 months. Not since our parents had made their position on her divorce absolutely, devastatingly clear. Rachel, whose voice now carried a kind of desperation that made my chest tighten with immediate dread. Rachel? What is wrong? Where are you? I am at a rest stop, off I-94. The twins, Michael, they threw us out. Mom and Dad, they actually threw us out. In this storm, with the babies. I stood so abruptly my chair rolled back and hit the window. Through the phone, I could hear it clearly now, the high, frightened crying of infants. The twins, Lily and Lucas, barely 5 months old, probably cold, definitely terrified, and apparently homeless in the middle of what meteorologists were calling the storm of the decade. What do you mean they threw you out? But even as I asked, I knew exactly what she meant. Our parents did not do things halfway. When they cut someone off, it was with surgical precision. They said divorced women bring shame to the family name, that I made my bed when I left Daniel. They packed our things, put them on the driveway, and locked the door. Locked us out of our childhood home while their grandchildren screamed. In this storm, Michael, they looked at those babies and chose their reputation over their lives. The sound that came through the phone then was not quite crying, not quite screaming, but something worse. The sound of someone who had moved past heartbreak into something hollow and desperate. Behind it, the twins' cries had escalated, and I could hear the rain pounding whatever flimsy shelter she had found. Which rest stop exactly? I was already grabbing my keys, my coat, leaving the merger documents scattered across my desk like abandoned dreams. Mile marker 127, the Pinewood Rest Area. But Michael, the storm, the roads are flooding. They are saying tornadoes are possible. You cannot. I am coming. Stay inside. Keep the babies warm. Do not move. I am coming right now. I ended the call before she could protest, before the rational part of my brain could calculate the danger of driving 50 miles through what the weather service kept calling unsurvivable conditions. Some calculations did not matter when family, real family, needed you. The elevator down to the parking garage felt like descending into another world. Each floor marker was a reminder of how high I had climbed in the corporate world, how much I had achieved, and how little any of it mattered when my sister was huddled in a rest-stop bathroom trying to keep her infant twins warm while our parents sat in their climate-controlled mansion, choosing their reputation over their own blood. My BMW started immediately, a marvel of German engineering that my father had nodded approvingly at during the last family gathering I had attended. Finally, a car that reflects your position, he had said. Now I was about to drive that status symbol through hell itself to rescue the daughter he had discarded like trash. The parking garage exit opened onto a world transformed. The rain was not falling so much as attacking, coming at the windshield horizontally, driven by wind that made the car shake even while stationary. The street, normally bustling with evening traffic, was a river. Abandoned cars sat like islands, their hazard lights blinking uselessly in the deluge. But I pulled out anyway, because somewhere in this chaos, my sister was trying to keep 2 5-month-old babies alive after being cast out by the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. To understand how we got here, you have to understand the Harrison family doctrine. It is not written in any family Bible or framed on any wall, but it might as well be carved in stone for how rigidly it is enforced. The rules are simple. Harrisons do not fail. Harrisons do not divorce. Harrisons do not embarrass the family name. And most importantly, Harrisons maintain the facade of perfection at any cost, even if that cost is their own children. I learned this lesson when I was 8 years old, sitting at our dining room table, the one made from imported Italian marble that my mother loved to mention at her book club meetings. We were having Sunday dinner, the mandatory weekly performance where we all pretended to be the perfect family my parents desperately needed us to be. Rachel was there, of course, only 5 years old but already learning to sit straight, speak only when spoken to, and smile the Harrison smile. Lips closed, chin slightly raised, eyes empty of anything that might be mistaken for genuine emotion. She wore the dress my mother had picked out, navy blue with white collar, her hair in perfect pigtails that had taken our mother 45 minutes to arrange. I remember watching her push her peas around her plate in precise circles, already understanding that eating too much was unladylike but leaving too much was wasteful, and either transgression would earn a lecture later. "Why does not Aunt Jennifer come to dinner anymore?" I had asked innocently, not understanding why my favorite aunt had suddenly vanished from our lives. The silence that followed was arctic. My father set down his fork with deliberate precision, the small clink against fine china somehow thunderous. "We do not have an Aunt Jennifer," my mother said, her voice smooth as poison. "But she is Dad's sister. She used to bring me books every. We do not have an Aunt Jennifer." Each word was carved from ice. Some people choose to remove themselves from this family through their actions. When they do, they cease to exist. I was too young to understand that Aunt Jennifer's crime had been leaving a husband who hit her. Too young to grasp that in the Harrison family ledger, a bruised face was less shameful than a divorced daughter. But I was old enough to understand the threat implicit in my mother's words. "Step out of line, and you too will cease to exist." Rachel had been 5 during that dinner, too young to remember Aunt Jennifer at all. But she grew up in the shadow of that absence, in a house where love came with terms and conditions, where affection was a reward for compliance rather than a birthright. She tried so hard to be what they wanted. Honor roll student, valedictorian, full scholarship to Northwestern. When she married Daniel Reeves at 26, our parents acted like they had won the lottery. Daniel was everything they could have wanted in a son-in-law. Old money family, surgical resident at Presbyterian Hospital, member of all the right clubs. The wedding was featured in the Tribune Society pages, my mother's crowning achievement after years of careful social climbing. For 3 years, Rachel played the part perfectly. The beautiful wife at hospital fundraisers. The gracious hostess at dinner parties. The devoted daughter who called twice a week and never missed Sunday dinner. When she announced her pregnancy, our parents bought the twins everything. Designer nursery furniture, matching silver rattles engraved with the Harrison crest, a trust fund established before they were even born. I watched her during those 3 years, and if you knew what to look for, you could see the erosion happening in real time. First, it was the way she stopped laughing at things that were actually funny, replacing her real laugh with this hollow society giggle that sounded like breaking glass. Then it was how she started checking her phone obsessively whenever we were together, her face tightening with each text from Daniel. By year 2, she had developed this habit of touching her wedding ring constantly, twisting it around her finger like she was trying to remind herself it was there, or maybe wishing it was not. The pregnancy should have been a joy. Twins, the ultimate Harrison achievement, efficiency even in reproduction. But I remember visiting her when she was 7 months along, her belly huge with the babies, and finding her crying in the nursery she had spent weeks decorating. "What if they grow up like him?" she had whispered. "What if I cannot protect them?" I had told her she was being hormonal, that everything would be fine once the babies came. Another failure on my part, another moment when I chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. But perfect is a fragile thing, and Daniel Reeves, for all his sterling credentials, was rotten at the core. The first time I noticed something was wrong was at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Rachel was wearing a turtleneck in an overheated house, and when she reached for the green beans, I saw the edge of bruising on her wrist. She caught me looking and quickly pulled her sleeve down, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Playing tennis," she said. "You know how competitive Daniel gets." I knew Daniel did not play tennis, but I also knew that in the Harrison house, we did not ask questions that might have uncomfortable answers. The second time was at the twins' baptism. Daniel had been drinking. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I saw the way Rachel flinched when he put his arm around her for photos. The way she positioned herself between him and the babies whenever he moved. The careful distance she maintained, like a dancer avoiding a partner's feet. I pulled her aside while everyone was cooing over the twins in their matching christening gowns. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. "Of course," she said, but her hands were shaking as she adjusted Lily's bonnet. "Why would not I be? I have everything. The perfect husband, beautiful babies, the life mom and dad always wanted for me. Rachel, please, Michael." Her voice cracked just slightly. "Please just let me have today." I should have pushed harder. Should have ignored the family doctrine that said we do not make scenes, we do not air dirty laundry, we do not acknowledge that anything in the Harrison family could be less than perfect. But I was still, even at 38, that 8-year-old boy who had learned that asking the wrong questions made people disappear. The breaking point came 3 months ago. Daniel had been passed over for chief resident, a position he had assumed was his by birthright. He came home drunk, angry, looking for someone to blame. Rachel became that someone. When she showed up at my apartment at 2 in the morning, her face was a map of violence. Black eye, split lip, bruises on her throat in the perfect shape of fingers. The twins were with her, crying in their car seats, and she was holding them like life rafts in a storm. "I left," she said simply. I took the babies and I left. Good, I said, already reaching for my phone. We need to document this. Call the police. Get you to a hospital. No, she grabbed my hand. No police. No hospital. If Mom and Dad find out. Rachel, he tried to kill you. No, he was upset about the job. It will not happen again. I just need a few days to let him cool off. And then, you are not going back. The words came out harder than I intended. Rachel, you cannot go back to him. She started crying then. Not the pretty tears you see in movies, but the ugly, body-shaking sobs of someone whose entire world was collapsing. The twins, responding to their mother's distress, cried harder. You do not understand, she gasped between sobs. Mom and Dad, they invested so much in this marriage. The wedding alone cost more than most people's houses. And Daniel's family, the connections, the status. If I leave, if I divorce him, they will never forgive me. Then they are not worth having in your life. She looked at me like I had suggested she cut off her own arm. They are my parents, Michael. They are all I have. You have me. You have the twins. That is enough. But it was not enough. Not for someone who had been raised to believe that parental approval was oxygen, that family reputation was more important than personal safety. Rachel went back to Daniel 3 days later, armed with his promises that it would never happen again, that the stress of the job situation had made him crazy, that he loved her and the twins more than anything. 2 weeks later, she was back at my apartment. This time, she had recorded Daniel's rage on her phone, had taken pictures of every bruise, had finally decided that her life was worth more than my parents' approval. The divorce was brutal but quick. Daniel's family threw money at the problem, trying to buy Rachel's silence, trying to make it all go away quietly. But Rachel held firm. She wanted primary custody of the twins, and she got it. Daniel got supervised visitation once a month, which he had not yet exercised. Too busy rebuilding his reputation to bother with the children he had claimed to love. My parents' reaction was exactly what Rachel had feared and I had expected. They took Daniel's side. You could have worked it out, my mother said when Rachel told them about the divorce. All marriages have rough patches. He hit me, Rachel said, the words hanging in the air like an accusation. You must have provoked him, my father replied, and in that moment, I watched my sister shatter a little more. Men like Daniel do not just lose control for no reason. They tried everything to force her back. Emotional manipulation. Think of the twins growing up without a father. Financial pressure. We will not support this foolishness. Even threats. No divorced woman has ever remained a Harrison. But Rachel, probably for the first time in her life, stood her ground. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks ago. She got the house, alimony, child support, everything her lawyer could extract from the Reeves family's desperate desire to keep the details quiet. My parents' response was swift and merciless. They cut her off completely, stopped taking her calls, removed her photos from the family wall, told everyone who asked that they had one child now, me, just me, the good son who had never embarrassed them, never failed to meet their expectations, never chosen his own happiness over their reputation. And now, tonight, they had gone one step further. They had thrown her out into a storm that was killing people, with 2 5-month-old babies, because maintaining their image was more important than their daughter's life. The drive to mile marker 127 was 50 miles of negotiation with death. The rain came down in sheets so thick that my high beams only penetrated about 10 feet. The wind grabbed at the BMW like a giant trying to pluck it off the road and throw it into the fields. I passed abandoned cars every few hundred yards, some overturned, some simply surrendered to the rising water. The radio kept repeating emergency broadcasts. Seek shelter immediately. Do not attempt to drive. This is a life-threatening situation. But I kept going, guided by the sound of my sister's desperate voice and the crying of those babies. I tried calling Rachel twice, but the calls would not go through. The cell towers were probably down or overwhelmed or destroyed. All I could do was drive and hope and try not to think about what I would find when I got there. Mile marker 100. The road was more river than highway now, water up to the bottom of my doors. The BMW's engine coughed once, twice, but kept going. German engineering versus Midwest weather, with my sister's life hanging in the balance. Mile marker 115. I had to swerve around a jackknifed semi, its trailer twisted like aluminum foil. The wind hit me broadside as I passed, shoving the car into the shoulder. For a moment, I felt the tires leave the ground, but then they found purchase again, and I was still moving, still fighting through the storm. The radio crackled with updates between bursts of static. Interstate 94 is closed at mile marker 89 due to flooding. Multiple tornadoes confirmed on the ground. Seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. But mile marker 89 was behind me now, and shelter was not an option when my sister was out there with two infants who did not understand why their world had turned into chaos. I passed a minivan on its side, a family huddled on the shoulder, and I slowed down, rolling down my window despite the rain. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The father waved me on. Emergency services were already on the way, he shouted over the wind. But as I pulled away, I saw him holding his children the same way Rachel would be holding the twins, with that desperate protection that comes when you realize how fragile everything really is. Mile marker 120. The rain turned to hail, golf ball-sized chunks of ice that hammered the roof and cracked the windshield. Each impact sounded like gunfire, like the sky itself was trying to kill me. The first crack appeared directly in my line of sight, a spider web of fractured glass that made the road ahead look like a broken mirror. I thought about pulling over, waiting it out, but then I remembered Rachel's voice. They locked us out in this storm. If my parents could lock their daughter and grandchildren out in this weather, then I could damn well drive through it to save them. Mile marker 125. The tornado sirens started, their wail cutting through even the storm's roar. In the distance, I could see it, a funnel cloud dropping from the sky like the finger of an angry god. It was moving parallel to the highway, maybe 2 miles away, tearing through farmland with casual devastation. Mile marker 127. The Pinewood Rest area materialized through the rain like a miracle. A single building, lights still on, parking lot flooded but accessible. And there, parked right by the door, was Rachel's minivan, the one my parents had bought her for the twins, back when she was still their daughter, back when the babies were still their grandchildren. I parked next to her and ran for the door, the rain hitting me like 1,000 frozen needles. The wind nearly knocked me down twice in the 20 feet between car and building, but I made it, throwing myself through the door into sudden, relative quiet. The rest area was crowded with storm refugees. Truckers, families, anyone who had been caught on the highway when hell broke loose. But I found Rachel immediately, huddled in a corner with the twins, trying to keep them warm with her coat. "Michael!" She looked up at me with eyes that held too much pain for someone only 32 years old. "You actually came. Through all of that, you came." "Of course I came," I said, kneeling beside her. Lucas was sleeping fitfully in her arms, while Lily fussed in her car seat, tiny fists waving at injustices she could not understand. "We are family. Real family." She started crying then, silent tears that she quickly wiped away. Even now, even after everything, she was trying to maintain composure, to not make a scene, to be the good daughter our parents had trained her to be. "They changed the locks," she said quietly. "I went there because I had nowhere else to go. The house, Daniel got it in some last-minute legal maneuver. I have been staying in hotels with the twins, trying to figure out what to do. I thought maybe, with the storm, Mom and Dad would let us in. Just for one night. Just to keep the babies safe. What happened? I rang the doorbell. Mom answered. She looked at me, looked at the twins in their car seats, looked at the storm behind us. And she said, "You are not welcome here. You made your choice." Then she closed the door. Dad came out 5 minutes later with garbage bags full of our things. Baby clothes, photo albums, everything they had that was ours. He put them on the driveway and said, "Take these and do not come back. We have no daughter. In this storm, with the babies." I begged Michael. I got on my knees in the rain and begged them to at least take the twins. They are innocent in all this. But Dad just said, "They are the children of divorce. They are tainted too." Then he went inside and turned off the porch light. The rage that filled me then was unlike anything I had ever felt. Pure, clean, righteous fury at the people who had raised us, who claimed to love us, who had chosen their precious reputation over the lives of their own grandchildren. "We are done with them," I said. "Both of us. Forever. Michael, they are our parents." "No, parents do not do this. Parents do not throw babies into storms. Parents do not choose reputation over their children's lives. They are not our parents anymore. They are just two people who happen to share our DNA." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "So what do we do now?" "Now we get you and the twins somewhere safe. My apartment first, then we will figure out the rest. But Rachel, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully." "What?" "There is something else. Something about our family that you do not know. Something I discovered 3 weeks ago when I was helping with grandmother's estate." Rachel's face went pale. Our grandmother, my father's mother, had died 2 months earlier. She had been the only soft spot in the Harrison family, the only one who had ever shown us unconditional love. She had been in a nursing home for the last 5 years of her life, her mind slowly fading. But even in her confusion, she had never forgotten our birthdays, never failed to tell us she loved us. "What about grandmother?" Rachel asked. "She left something for you, for us, documents, letters, the truth about our family that our parents never wanted us to know." "What truth?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo I had taken of the letter, the one written in our grandmother's shaky handwriting, dated just a month before she died. "My dear Michael and Rachel, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the time for secrets has passed. There are things about your family, about your history, that your parents have hidden from you. Things that explain so much about why they are the way they are, and why I spent my final years praying you would both find the strength to break free from the cycle. Your parents are not who they claim to be. The Harrison family fortune, the reputation they guard so jealously, the perfect image they maintain. It is all built on a lie. And that lie has poisoned everything it touched, including them and very nearly including you. The truth is hidden in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Account number 4847. The key is with my lawyer, Mr. Patterson. Everything is there. Documents, photographs, the real story of who we are and where we came from. I should have told you years ago, but I was a coward, afraid of what your father would do. But you deserve the truth. You deserve to know why your parents are incapable of real love, why they value appearance over everything else, why they would rather lose you than lose face. It is not an excuse for what they have done, but it is an explanation. I love you both more than words can say. Be brave. Be better than we were. All my love, grandmother. Rachel read it twice, then looked up at me. Have you opened it? The safety deposit box. Not yet. I was waiting for the right time, but I think maybe the right time is now, do not you? When they have shown us exactly who they are. Before she could answer, the tornado sirens increased in volume, and someone shouted, "It is coming this way!" Everyone to the center of the building, away from the windows. The next few minutes were chaos. Everyone crowding into the rest area's central hallway, the truckers helping families with children, strangers becoming allies in the face of shared danger. I held Lucas while Rachel held Lily, and we pressed ourselves against the concrete wall with everyone else, listening to the storm try to tear the world apart outside. The tornado passed within a quarter-mile of us. The sound was indescribable, like a freight train made of screaming metal and breaking glass. The building shook, the lights flickered and died, emergency lighting kicked in, and somewhere a child was crying, or maybe it was one of the twins, or maybe it was all of us, giving voice to our terror. But the building held. We survived. When it was over, when the sound had faded to mere hurricane-force winds and torrential rain, Rachel looked at me in the dim emergency lighting and said, "We need to know. Whatever is in that box, we need to know." I nodded. "Tomorrow, after we get you settled, we will go to the bank." "Michael," she said suddenly, "what if what is in there is worse than what we already know? What if the truth is something we cannot come back from?" "Then at least it will be the truth," I said. "And the truth, whatever it is, has to be better than this lie we have been living." The storm continued for another 3 hours. We stayed in that rest area with 24 other refugees, sharing what food people had, taking turns holding the twins when Rachel's arms got tired, creating a makeshift community of survivors. A trucker gave us bottled water. A family shared their sandwich crackers. An elderly couple had formula in their car. They were bringing it to their own grandchild and insisted Rachel take half of it. There was a woman there, probably in her 70s, who took one look at Rachel and the twins and immediately went into grandmother mode. She had fled her own home when a tree came through her roof, grabbed only her purse and her cat, now mewling pitifully in a carrier, but she spent the entire time helping Rachel with the babies. "I raised 6 of my own," she said, expertly soothing Lucas when he started crying. "These hands remember what to do." She told us stories to pass the time, about other storms she had survived, about raising children alone after her husband died in Vietnam, about how the hardest times often showed you who your real family was. "Blood makes you related," she said, looking directly at Rachel. "But loyalty makes you family. And honey, anyone who would throw babies into a storm is not family, no matter what DNA says." A young couple, probably newlyweds from the matching wedding bands they kept touching, gave us their emergency blanket for the twins. They were driving to visit his parents for the first time, they said, nervous about making a good impression. Although, the wife said, looking out at the devastation, surviving a tornado together has got to count for something, right? They all laughed, that slightly hysterical laugh of people who had faced death and come out the other side. This was family, I realized. These strangers who helped without being asked, who shared what little they had, who made sure everyone was okay. They showed more care for Rachel and the twins in 3 hours than our parents had shown in 3 months. When the storm finally started to die down, phone numbers were exchanged, promises to check in were made. The elderly woman kissed both twins on the forehead before she left, pressing a $20 bill into Rachel's hand despite her protests. "For diapers," she insisted. "Babies do not stop needing things just because there was a storm." When the worst of the storm finally passed, when the highways were declared barely passable, we made the drive back to Minneapolis. Rachel followed in her minivan, and I drove slowly enough that she could keep up, watching my rearview mirror constantly to make sure she was still there, still safe, still with me. My apartment had never felt smaller than when we carried 2 exhausted babies and their exhausted mother inside. It is a nice place. 2 bedrooms, downtown views, modern everything, but it was designed for a bachelor who worked too much, not for a family. But we would make it work. We had to. I set Rachel and the twins up in the guest room, and we spent the rest of the night in a kind of shocked silence, processing what had happened, what our parents had done, what came next. The twins slept finally, deeply, as if they knew they were safe now. Rachel dozed in the chair beside their makeshift cribs, dresser drawers lined with blankets, and I sat by the window watching the storm finally die over the city. The next morning came too bright and too soon. The storm had passed completely, leaving behind a sky so blue it seemed fake and damage that would take months to fully assess. The news was full of destruction. Towns leveled, hundreds homeless, at least 12 confirmed dead. We had been lucky, impossibly, miraculously lucky. Rachel was already awake when I got up, feeding the twins with the formula the elderly couple had given us. She looked exhausted but determined, like someone who had passed through fire and come out harder. "I called Mr. Patterson," she said, "grandmother's lawyer. He can meet us at the bank at noon. Are you sure you are ready for this?" I was thrown out of my childhood home with infant twins in a Category 4 storm by parents who said I was dead to them. I do not think anything in that box can be worse than what I already know. She was wrong. Mr. Patterson was an elderly man who had apparently known our grandmother for 40 years. He met us at the First National Bank with a kindness that made Rachel tear up. He had brought supplies for the twins, having heard about what happened from sources he did not disclose. "Your grandmother was very specific," he said as he led us to the safety deposit boxes. "She wanted both of you to see this together. She said you would need each other to process it." The box was larger than I expected, and heavy when we carried it to the private viewing room. Rachel and I sat side by side, the twins sleeping in their car seats at our feet, and I turned the key. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters dating back 60 years. At the top was an envelope addressed to both of us in our grandmother's handwriting. "Read this first." The letter inside was dated just 2 weeks before she died. "My dearest Michael and Rachel, by now you have probably experienced the coldness that lives where your parents' hearts should be. You have probably wondered how people who are supposed to love you could be so cruel. The answer is in these documents, and it is both simpler and more complicated than you might think. Your parents are not biological siblings, but they were raised as such. Your father is not a Harrison by blood. He was adopted when he was 3 years old, taken from a situation that was unfortunate. His birth mother was a teenager, his birth father unknown. The Harrison family, my late husband's family, took him in not out of kindness but out of necessity. They needed an heir, and I could not have children after multiple miscarriages. But here is where it gets complicated. Your mother is also adopted. She was brought into the Blackwood family under similar circumstances when she was 2. Neither of them knew this growing up. They were raised to believe they were natural-born members of elite families, and their whole identities were built on this lie. They found out the truth on their wedding day. Both sets of parents, mine and your mother's, decided to tell them right before the ceremony, thinking it would not matter since they were not actually blood-related so the marriage could proceed. But something broke in both of them that day. The foundations of their entire selves crumbled. Everything they believed about their place in the world, their inherited superiority, their right to judge others, all of it was built on lies. Instead of becoming more compassionate, understanding what it was like to be outsiders, they became harder. They decided that if they were not born to privilege, they would earn it through perfect adherence to the rules. They would be more Harrison and Blackwood than anyone born to it. They would never, ever let anyone see them as anything less than perfect. This is why they cannot forgive divorce, Rachel. This is why they cannot accept any deviation from their rigid standards. They are terrified that if they show any crack in their facade, everyone will see them for what they really are, abandoned children playing dress-up in clothes that were never really theirs. I am not telling you this to excuse what they have done. There is no excuse for choosing reputation over their children's lives. But I want you to understand that their cruelty comes from fear, not strength. They are not powerful people maintaining standards. They are frightened children still trying to prove they belong at a table that was never really theirs. The rest of these documents tell the full story. The adoption papers, the records of where they really came from, the letters between the families arranging the deception. There are also records of all the family members who have been cast out over the years for failing to meet impossible standards. You are not the first, Rachel. You will not be the last. But you can be the ones who break the cycle. I have also included something else. Documents for a trust one set up years ago, hidden from your parents. There is enough there to help you both start over, to build lives free from the poison of this legacy. The bank has all the information. Live honestly, love freely. Be the family to each other that our family never knew how to be. With all my love and all my regrets, Grandmother. Rachel was crying by the time she finished reading. Silent tears that fell onto the papers, blurring ink that had already revealed too much. I was not crying, but something inside me had shifted fundamentally, like tectonic plates realigning after an earthquake. They are orphans, Rachel said finally. Just like they made me, just like they tried to make the twins. But they chose it, I said. They had parents who wanted them, who raised them, who gave them everything, and they chose to perpetuate the lie rather than break free from it. We spent the next 2 hours going through the rest of the documents. Our father's birth certificate. His real name had been James Walker, born to a 15-year-old girl in Iowa. Our mother's adoption papers. She had been Margaret Chen, born to Chinese immigrants who could not afford to keep her. The irony was not lost on us that she had cast Rachel out for divorcing a man named Daniel Chun, never knowing she herself had been born with that surname. The adoption files were detailed, clinical in their destruction of our parents' mythology. Our father's birth mother had been a high school student named Susan Walker, described in the social worker's notes as bright but overwhelmed, wishes better for the child than she can provide. There was a photograph of her paper-clipped to the file, a young girl with my father's eyes, holding a baby she would never see again. She had written a letter to him, to be given when he turned 18. Our grandparents never gave it to him. We read it together, this message from a ghost. My dear baby boy, I am writing this as I hold you for the last time. You are 3 days old, and you have your grandmother's eyes and your grandfather's stubborn chin. I am 15 years old, and I know that love is not enough. Love cannot buy you formula or diapers or the education you deserve. Love cannot give you a father or a stable home or parents who are not children themselves. So I am giving you to people who can give you those things, and I am keeping the love. I will love you every day of my life. Wonder who you become. Hope you are happy. Be happy, my sweet boy. Be happier than I knew how to make you. Rachel was sobbing by the time she finished reading. Our father had spent his entire life building walls to keep people out, never knowing that his first mother's only sin had been loving him too much to keep him in poverty. There were photographs, too. Our parents on their wedding day, smiling but with something hollow in their eyes. Now we knew it was because they had just learned their entire lives were fiction. Pictures of family members we had never met, all cast out for various sins against the family code. Aunt Jennifer was there, smiling with her new husband and stepchildren, clearly happy despite being erased from the family history. We need to find them, Rachel said suddenly. All of them. Aunt Jennifer, the others. They are our real family, the ones who chose truth over the lie. We will, I promised. We will find every single person they cast out and we will build our own family. A real one. The trust our grandmother had left was substantial, enough for Rachel to buy a house, to provide for the twins, to rebuild her life without our parents' help or judgment. There was money for me too, though I did not need it as much. But more than money, there was freedom in that safety deposit box. Freedom from the weight of trying to live up to impossible standards set by people who had never met those standards themselves. As we were leaving the bank, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Michael," she said, her voice cold and controlled. "I understand you helped Rachel last night." I did. That was a mistake. If you continue to associate with her, you will be making a choice. The family or her. You cannot have both. I could hear my father in the background, his voice low and angry, probably coaching her through this conversation like they coached each other through every social interaction, every performance of perfect parenthood. "Let me ask you something, Mom," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "Do you ever wonder about your birth parents, the Chens? Do you wonder if they think about the daughter they gave up?" The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear her breathing, rapid and shallow, the controlled facade cracking just slightly. "How dare you? We know, Mom. We know everything. About you, about Dad, about the lies you have built your entire lives on." James Walker and Margaret Chin, two abandoned children so desperate to belong that they would throw away their own children rather than admit they were abandoned themselves. "You know nothing," she hissed, but her voice was shaking now. "We are Harrisons. We have always been Harrisons. No, you have been playing Harrisons. And you have been so afraid someone would figure out it was all pretend that you have destroyed everyone who threatened the performance, including your own daughter, including your grandchildren. Those children are products of a broken home. They are. They are innocent babies who needed shelter in a storm, and you locked the door on them. What would Susan Walker think, Mom? What would your birth mother think about you leaving babies in a storm? She gave you up to give you a better life, and you used that life to become the kind of person who abandons children." I heard something break on the other end, a glass maybe, or possibly my mother's last thread of composure. I looked at Rachel, holding her twins, standing in the bright sunshine of a world washed clean by the storm. Then I thought about our parents, sitting in their perfect house with their perfect lie, alone with their fear and their facade. "I have already made my choice," I said. "I choose her. I choose the twins. I choose the truth." "Then you are no longer." I hung up before she could finish. I knew what she was going to say, that I was no longer their son, no longer a Harrison, no longer welcome in their perfectly manicured life. But the thing was, I had never really been those things anyway. None of us had. We had all been actors in a play written by frightened people, performing roles that were never real to begin with. "So what now?" Rachel asked as we walked to our cars, the twins beginning to fuss for their next feeding. "Now we live," I said. "Actually live, not perform. We raise Lucas and Lily to know they are loved unconditionally. We find Aunt Jennifer and the others. We build something real." "It is scary," she admitted, "being cut off from everything we have known." "It is," I agreed. "But you know what? I think grandmother was right. We are the ones who can break the cycle. We are the ones who can choose love over fear, truth over lies, family over facade." That was 6 months ago. Rachel and the twins live in a house now, not as grand as our childhood home, but filled with something that mansion never had: genuine warmth. The walls are covered with finger paintings and crayon drawings, not portraits of stern ancestors. The kitchen smells like baby food and burnt attempts at cooking, not the nothing smell of a space too perfect to actually be used. I sold my downtown apartment and bought the house next door to Rachel. My parents would be horrified at the suburb we chose: middle class, diverse, full of regular people living regular lives. But Lucas and Lily are growing up with dozens of honorary aunts and uncles, neighbors who actually care about them, not just their last name. We found Aunt Jennifer. She lives in Portland now, runs a bakery, has been happily remarried for 15 years. When we called her, she cried for 20 minutes, then booked a flight for the next day. She brought photo albums our parents had tried to destroy, full of pictures of us as children with all the erased family members. We had been loved, it turned out, by so many people our parents had deemed unworthy. I used to drive by the house, Jennifer told us over coffee in Rachel's new kitchen. For years after they cut me off, I would drive by on your birthdays, hoping to catch a glimpse of you too. I watched you grow up through car windows and glimpses at school events I was not supposed to attend. I kept every newspaper clipping about your achievements, your graduations, Rachel's wedding announcement. I have a whole box of you too. My phantom niece and nephew who I was not allowed to love. She showed us the box. It was heartbreaking and beautiful. Someone maintaining a relationship with children who did not even know she still existed. There were birthday cards she never sent, gifts she never gave, letters explaining why she had to leave, why she could not fight our parents' decree. The hardest part, she said, was knowing they would tell you I did not care, that I had abandoned you, when the truth was, I would have taken you both in a heartbeat if they had let me. One by one, we found the others. Cousin Mark, cast out for marrying a man. Second cousin Lisa, banished for having a child out of wedlock. Great uncle Robert, erased for refusing to go into the family business. Each of them had built beautiful, authentic lives away from the Harrison legacy. Each of them welcomed us with open arms and open hearts. Daniel never did exercise his visitation rights with the twins. Last we heard, he had moved to California and remarried. Someone from the right family who did not mind his temper as long as the money kept flowing. Rachel is in therapy, working through not just the abuse from Daniel but the deeper wounds from our parents. She is getting stronger every day, laughing more, flinching less. As for our parents, we hear about them occasionally through the grapevine. They tell people they never had children. They have written us out of their will, out of their history, out of their lives. They sit in their perfect house with their perfect things, guarding their perfect lie, growing older and smaller and more afraid with each passing day. Sometimes I feel sorry for them. They could have had this grandchildren who adore them, children who would have loved them despite their flaws, a family held together by something stronger than fear. But they chose the lie instead, chose the facade, chose to be the people they thought they were supposed to be instead of the people they could have been. The storm that brought everything crashing down was the best thing that ever happened to us. It washed away the lies, the pretense, the impossible standards. What remained was harder but cleaner, the truth of who we are, who we choose to be, who we choose to call family. Lucas and Lily will grow up knowing they are loved not for their achievements or their adherence to arbitrary rules, but simply for existing. They will know that family is not about blood or names or reputation. It is about showing up in storms, literal and metaphorical. It is about choosing love over fear every single time. The other day, Lucas said his first word. It was not mama or dada. It was M.O., his attempt at more when Rachel was feeding him. More food, more attention, more love, more everything. And I thought, yes, that is exactly right. We choose more. More love, more truth, more real connection, more of everything that matters, and none of what does not. Last week, the twins took their first steps on the same day, Lucas in the morning and Lily in the afternoon, like they had planned it together. Rachel called me over from next door, and we sat on her living room floor, tears streaming down both our faces, as these two tiny humans who had been locked out in a storm now walked toward us with huge grins on their faces. Aunt Jennifer was visiting and caught it all on video, and later that night, she said something that stayed with me. Your parents missed this. They chose their pride over these moments, and these moments are everything. She was right. Our parents, sitting in their perfect house with their perfect things, had traded the chaos and beauty of real life for the cold comfort of control. They would never see Lucas's face when he discovered bubbles, never hear Lily's infectious giggle when you tickle her feet, never experience the pure joy of unconditional love freely given by children who do not yet know that love sometimes comes with conditions. The twins are starting to talk more now, and we are teaching them all the words our parents never said to us. I love you, is said 100 times a day. I am proud of you for every small achievement. You are enough when they fail at something and cry, "Try again," instead of, "Do not embarrass us." They will grow up knowing that mistakes are not moral failures, that divorce is not a death sentence, that families can look 1,000 different ways and still be perfect. Our parents were right about one thing: we did make a choice, but it was not the choice they thought we were making. We did not choose between family and divorce, between reputation and happiness, between their approval and our lives. We chose between their fear and our freedom. We chose between their lie and our truth. We chose between the family they pretended to be and the family we actually are. And every single day, when I watch Rachel teaching the twins to walk, when I see them reaching for each other with pure joy, when I witness the messy, chaotic, beautiful reality of actual love, I know we chose right. We chose the storm over the shelter, the truth over the lie, the terrifying freedom of being ourselves over the suffocating safety of being who they needed us to be. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen, both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to. It is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.